Hey everybody, it's John Kraska with Everlibrary and the Everlibrary Institute. It is Banned Books Week 2025. Thank you for being part of these conversations. This week, we are looking to talk, like we do every Banned Books Week, about the big ideas around censorship, the big issues around discrimination. But we're also making sure that we have conversations about the reason that libraries exist in the first place, which is to connect readers to their books. Maybe a new author, maybe somebody that they've loved for a long time, and to have a conversation about the culture of reading and the culture of writing that goes into it. There's a whole ecosystem in publishing that I think is very important for us to surface, because watching how it's made and learning from the folks whose devotion to the written word, to their craft, isn't just the writer, it's the editor, it's the publisher, it's that pipeline that connects, again, the author with their reader. So we're very happy to today with Banned Books Week 2025 to chat with Reagan Arthur. I want to bring Reagan in right now and say welcome to our show. Everlibrary Live, as you know, is all about that big conversation about writing, and you as an editor and you as a founder for a publishing house. I want to share with folks your biography and then get to talk to you about why you did what you're doing. So Reagan Arthur began her publishing career as an editorial assistant at St. Martin's Press and has since worked at Picador, Little Brown, and Knopf. Authors she's edited include Kate Atkinson, Tina Fey, Bono, James Patterson, Joshua Ferris, Attica Locke. At Cardinal, she's building a carefully focused list of literary and commercial fiction with occasional forays into narrative nonfiction. Cardinal launched in September 2025 with Kathy Chidgey's The Book of Guilt. In 2026, the list will feature 4 dazzling debut novels, a brilliant short story collection, and the return of 2 best-selling and acclaimed crime writers, George Pelecanos and Ian Rankin. Reagan, I'm jealous of those conversations that you're having. Tell me a little bit about why you wanted to get Cardinal launched now. What's your vision for that place in the publishing world?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I think what excited me about the invitation that David Shelley, the CEO of Hachette, extended to me was the kind of vision for an imprint that's very small, very focused. We're only going to publish about 8 books a year, and so I think that gives us a chance to really dedicate a lot of time and focus to those books, and to really give each book just a lot of attention, and in the process, not just internally, in terms of just getting the jackets right and getting a lot of time for blurbs and things, sort of the nitty-gritty that goes into publishing a book. But I would hope the goal is that out in the world that people come to know, they don't publish many. This is my dream, of course, that and I also have to recognize that editors don't necessarily know, they don't pay attention to a colophon a lot. It's very rare, and there are only a few out in the world, Knopf, Penguin, Forsterhaus, perhaps, that, on the literary side, that people might recognize. So I realize it's a pretty lofty goal, but I would hope that, if we come to be known as a place of few and excellent books, that would be a dream come true. And that, not for me, but for the writers themselves, to be known as being part of a mighty band of writers. But that band will not be like a certain kind of book. It's not going to be all mysteries or all literary fiction. My again, dream is that they will all be the best of their kind. So whether it's commercial fiction or crime or literary, I'm just drawn to good stories, and stories that have a lot of event and voice and character. And that's, of course, an incredibly broad self-remit, I suppose. But it gives me a lot of room and a lot of fun.
Well, I think that there's, from what I've seen with the statistics about reading, you either have someone who's a purist, who reads in a particular genre, they stay in that lane, they love that, and they become aficionados of the variances within that genre. But most Americans read more broadly than that when they're readers. And I think that you're onto something here when it comes to a breadth and not necessarily a quantity. Cardinal in particular. Why Cardinal?
Well, without walking you through my incredibly boring and laborious process, I'll just say that it's very hard to name something. A lot of things are taken, and I wanted something that could last. Again, thinking beyond my time on Earth, but I don't know. And I think when I came up with this, I thought, well, cardinals are. During the pandemic, I spent a lot of time looking outside, as we all did, and I came to really love those cardinals. They were around all year. They were bright red. They were cheerful. I looked them up, and I found out that they're a symbol in many cultures of hope. So I liked that, and they're cute.
Yeah. And the idea that there's a certain entomological around the primacy also of a cardinal.
Yes, direction, cardinal primacy. So there were some things that I could fit into my definition that seemed to work.
I dig that. It emphasizes, you're emphasizing at Cardinal, the storytelling without borders. I like that phrase. What does that mean to you?
Well, I should say that I have not historically been an editor who publishes a ton of international fiction, so I'm kind of giving myself an assignment in a way of just expanding my own horizons and trying to broaden those as an editor, and to make sure that all of us, I suppose, but starting with me since I'm the one acquiring these books, just to think about ways for us to, as readers, to just be open to all kinds of voices and stories. And so I have bought a novel in translation, a French novel set in Gaza, for example. My first two books that I'm publishing, one is by a writer from New Zealand, and the other is by an Australian. So I'm getting there.
That's really cool. You've worked with an extraordinary roster of writers. I mean, I kept going. What draws you to a manuscript, and how do you know it's that book that you want to acquire?
I was just minutes ago having lunch with someone, and I was saying, like, on the first page, I was practically like leaving the manuscript to call the agent, because just the voice and the setup were so just great. Like, I just knew I was going to have to publish this book, and I did end up buying it. And that's not unusual. There's just usually something is there right away. And it's almost always that voice. It's just that clear, I don't know, like just flair with the language. It doesn't have to be funny. Sometimes it can just be incredibly moving. But there's just something in the language that, to me, signals a real writer at work.
Well, the real writer at work always benefits from a good editor. Now, whether the editor is deeply involved or as a co-conspirator, I guess, in the creative process, it's often an invisible art. And one of the reasons we wanted to chat today was not only to learn about the new imprint, but to talk with you as an editor and part of your craft. What do you see as the role of the editor in helping to shape the book without overshadowing the author's voice, but still, you've seen something in that first page, it's grabbed you. How do you get involved with a writer?
Well, it really depends. I do see myself, once I've bought the book and then it's my job to edit it, I then take on the role of reader, and I say to the writer, I'm asking the questions I don't want your reader to ask. I find this confusing. I find this boring. Whatever it might be, and I'm here to say this, and you might disagree. And I always say, it's your book. It's your name on it. I'm just raising this flag, but I never insist. That's not my job. It's my job to raise my hand, and it's her job to either slap me down or welcome me with open arms.
Yeah. I love that phrase, though. It's the question that you don't want your reader to have to ask. What did the author mean by that? The wrinkled nose of the writer? I'm sorry, the reader. I mean, my goodness, that's an interesting perspective to take.
Well, I think, yeah, I think that's ultimately the editor's job is really just, because we're the first reader of many, and then you just want to be, you do want to be invisible, right? I mean, but there are some famous examples. I mean, if you're interested in the role of editor, of course, there are some really interesting, I could totally nerd out about this. I mean, Robert Gottlieb, who was the famous editor-in-chief of Knopf for many years, wrote a wonderful memoir called Avid Reader about his experiences. And then Gary Fisketjon, another editor at Knopf, he was famously, the famous Raymond Carver's editor.
Yes.
And there's a lot of conversation about just how much, he really wrote on the page, and you can see a lot of question about, oh, no. I'm sorry, it was Gordon Lish. Lish editing some of those stories to such a degree that it was a question of, did he edit or actually write them? Anyway, so there's all these different ways that people do this, and it can be very interesting to consider that.
So did you have a moment or a project that really crystallized your editorial philosophy?
No, it's a funny profession because there's no school for it. I mean, well, there are schools for publishing, but there's no school for editing. You really have to learn as you go. You apprentice, essentially. It's not called that, but you assist an editor, and so you watch him or her doing it, and it's kind of the luck of the draw as to see how someone does it on the job essentially. And a lot of it depends on that, and plus your own instincts as a reader and what you sort of respond to as a reader. Mm-hmm. And some people like to go in very lightly, and some people like to really get in there. And there's no rule, there's no law. There's just the sort of readerly response that you come to it with.
So, forgive me, had a little bobble here. It is a live show. How do you see the relationship then, Reagan, between publishers and libraries and booksellers right now? Like the pipeline that we were talking about before. The libraries and booksellers are not the same in any way, shape, or form. One of them collects to resell, one of them collects to hold on to and share. But how do you see the publishing ecosystem functioning right now?
Well, I mean, in terms of, I guess, could you say more specifically what you mean in terms of library?
Sure. So readership, depends on what you're looking at in terms of stats. One study out of the UK recently said that casual readership is down tremendously since before the pandemic. Another one that we support, which is called the Freckle Project, shows that somewhere in the neighborhood of 85% of Americans read something, and when they read, about 19% of them get their books from libraries. That sounds like a pretty healthy ecosystem to me, but it's also difficult to gauge. Is the ecosystem of publishing right now as robust as people like us would hope it would be?
Well, without having statistics at hand, and excuse me, I didn't come armed, but I do think that it is, and I think the fact that publishing has survived as long as it has in the face of so many sea changes, so many dramatic ones. If you look at the music industry, for one obvious example, I think it's really a testament to the power of books and to the human just need to read that we have survived, and that libraries in particular, that I think, I'll try not to get political about this, but the fact that through so many social and political upheavals, I mean, to me, it's kind of a miracle that we still have libraries, and that people recognize the just necessity, the basic necessity of a library. I've become a huge fan of Libby, my library audio app. And I love the way that that's now something that people can avail themselves of. But I think, but more broadly, if the question is, how is the ecosystem in terms of the business of books, I mean, it's steady, it's held its own, and miraculously in the pandemic, as many people know, you know, the first year of the pandemic was a banner year for publishing. And, you know, it's always going to have peaks and valleys as a whole, as an industry, but I think we all come back to, you know, after a boom or bust year, it levels out to a point that proves that people just need stories.
Yeah.
And the format changes. That is definitely a fluctuation, but ultimately that's what it comes back to.
I think it's edifying. And though, you know, not to get political, but we are a political action committee for libraries. The censorship is not even on the rise. It looks like it's part of the new normal in some places. Book bans and the challenges that the publishing community face around reaching readers in a time when censorship and book bans are so prevalent. I see that there's opportunity for libraries and publishers to work together around this. We see leadership on the part of many publishers in the space trying to ensure the right to read. I mean, does it with you as an editor, has it impacted acquisitions too?
Well, I've thought a lot about this. I'm very lucky because I focus mostly on fiction, so it's not going to affect me, and it hasn't. But I can certainly see, and I work for a company that is not going to step in and you know, put a thumb on the scales. But yeah, I mean, it's entirely within the realm of possibility that, you know, I can see a different company saying you can't acquire X book. But I you know, I can't speculate on that. It's, you know, it's but I think that's one form of censorship, obviously, not even letting something get published. And because that's a hypothetical, I guess it's not that it's not worth speculating, but I don't.
Well, on the library side,
we have enough trouble without borrowing more, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like,
I like that phrase. It's almost like the devil doesn't need an advocate, you know? On the library side, we do talk a lot about soft censorship, meaning that somebody decides not to acquire, somebody decides not to put a book out on the shelf or on a display because of the pressures that are out there from censorship. It is a delicate conversation, though, about what choices do we make with the limited resources we have.
See, that's interesting. I confess I don't know enough about the library side of things to know like that side of the decision making. Like, and I, you know, although I have read about what goes into that and what libraries are discouraged from displaying, or in school libraries, you know, actually not allowed to display, and it's horrifying.
Yeah. Which is why I ask about, you know, on the publishing side as well, because, you know, the opacity of it, you know, you do your business every day. The librarians I know do their business every day. And yet the hope is really, again, to connect the reader to the story. And, okay, so this is a little political conversation, definitely a culture of reading conversation, but it is every library. You know, we have the every part, which is our hope that there's enough funding out there for libraries to do their jobs, librarians to do their jobs, and the institutional focus too. We're closing up on our segment today. I got to ask you to sing for your supper. Do you have some library memory that you would like to share? Library or librarian memory that you'd like to share for me?
Well, I have so many. Actually, it's funny. I was just, my husband's from suburban Detroit, and we were out there this weekend for a wedding, and we drove by a library. It was probably built in the 60s, and it was just one of these modern, you know, sort of big, beautiful libraries. And Scott said, oh, this wasn't his library, but his looked just like it. And I said, it looked just like my library in suburban Woodland Hills, California. And so we were just reminiscing about, like, there must have been just this amazing boom, post-war boom of library building, and where they all kind of had this look of low brick buildings. They didn't seem all that at the time, but now they have this sort of sentimental beauty to us. But yes, I had Well, I had a teacher named Mr. Dewey in third grade, and he told us that the Dewey Decimal System was named after him. And so this is the kind of nerd I was, that I was like, this was very exciting to me.
Yes.
So that's like not necessarily librarian memory. No, my mother took me every week, my brother and me, and we just, were very excited about our library stack that we were allowed to take out. And like everybody else, it's not a unique memory, but I worry now that kids don't have that same thrill of the return, the stack, how only had a certain amount. For me, it was the All of a Kind family books that I would check out and then go back and get more of, and all the renewals. So I'm sorry I don't have a specific but the smell of it, the thrill of it, just the routine of it was really sort of.
Well, that's fantastic. No, some people have person, like the librarian person. Some people have library's place, and I think you have a lovely place story. Though your library.
Well, I will also say my 87-year-old mother still volunteers at the Platt Ranch Library in Woodland Hills.
No kidding.
Tuesday night.
Big shout out to the Woodland Hills Library. It's fantastic. And Mr. Dewey, the imposter, that guy. So, Reagan Arthur, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It's a pleasure to meet you. I wish you all the best with Cardinal and the acquisitions process, but also connecting those readers to some wonderful multi-genre stories. So thank you for today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, on Every Library Live, we always wave to the audience as I put up the card, and then I hit end.